Shalom, shalom, family. Once again, we are at it. As always, I want to give all honor and praise to the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Holy One of Israel, who is Jesus. I am Cassius Israel, a.k.a. Kazak ben Yehuda. I represent the Walls of Jericho, Biblical and Historical Studies, Hebrews in the Hood Media. And as always, we have some music to play for y'all while y'all get situated in here. Once again, brothers and sisters, this is going on the Brews in the Hood, Volume 1, mixtape. So that will be Pentecost when you will see it available online. And let us continue. This will be on the mixtape, brothers and sisters. Come on in, family.
Not for profit, though. I've been praying so much lately, I've been living on my knees. Southside Chicago, but I face the Middle East. Trying to cash my blessings, but I'm fighting off a sneeze. No ha-ha Davis, but just finna be a breeze. Please keep let me breathe, gotta watch your pocket and a den of thieves. Pocket rocket for your little schemes, I am not a doctor, but take two of these. Around the seas, but you better flee to the wilderness when you see the king. Never been in need today, yeah. If you wanna know, you gon' learn me. Summer coasting with the sunroof open on them gold ropes, we ain't rope a dope. Bloody clap every time I ride, bitch, I will be trapped like Macaulay Culkin. But staying focused on what's most important, that's the most. Have my fam and my woman. Metro train, take me to the lab, gotta stay on track like the locomotive. I be butting off for my team, I be butting off for my fam. They said everything I'm not made me, everything I am. Flow is smooth as peanut butter, so you know this is your jam. Walking looking like the man, all I know is ran. When it's the nicest, no profit is priceless. You already know that we finna blow, ain't talking about ISIS. No cunning devices, no sinners enticing. But I just relax and run up a bag and try to live righteous. My senses is heightened, remember the Titans. Just do it the best and run up a check, ain't talking about Nike. The place is so stifling, but you gotta fight it. Just wanna find peace, no market of beast, just trying to live righteous.
Lemon lime soda over ice, lemon pepper on my wings. Look how I made it. I ain't changed a thing and I even major. Then I made it rain, but if I get this paper, would it even bring me currency? Happiness is what I need, like urgently. Currently, we fighting principalities, and I'm just hoping we don't have no casualties.
I'm not the type to go shade. I say it straight in your face.
I meditate and I ride, I might meet a cloud as I medicate. See my eyes low so the hate can't penetrate. I am in a daze. If I move slow, then I might get blown out. I am in a race. It's a time clock for a black man in America anyway. For a night bot or a nice watch, Randy Moss, I catch the fade. If my time come, I'ma rise up, Lebanon in a piece of bread. I'm on top like maraschino Eden, or like melanin on runway divas. Surrounded like your daddy fat by the constant sight of nothing isn't evil. Believing in the most high made me cut ties, hella different people. Now this word on me, that's my word, homie. Any haters present, I'ma swerve on them. And I hope my lady never curve on me. Wait your turn, homie, you can learn some.
When it's the nicest, no profit is priceless. You already know that we finna blow, ain't talking about ISIS. No cunning devices, no sinners enticing. But I just relax and run up a bag and try to live righteous. My senses is heightened, remember the Titans. Just do it the best and run up a check, ain't talking about Nike. The place is so stifling, but you gotta fight it. Just wanna find peace, no mark of the beast, just trying to live righteous.
All right. Shout out to my brothers Eli and Average Bo for that song. That will be also going on the mixtape as well, brothers and sisters. So, let's get down to it. So now, brothers and sisters, the reason why I wanted to do this lesson, I've done this before, but the reason why I wanted to bring it up again is it's always good to be able to get wisdom that you can apply to your everyday living. Practical things that you can apply to your everyday living. We don't necessarily have to get super deep. We don't have to get super deep, but we can still be edified with simplicity, right? The simplicity of Christ, right? But once again, we want to be able to apply this to our everyday living, things that's going on in our lives now. How can we fix what's going on in our lives now? You see what I'm saying? Some things you're just going to have to wait till you get to the kingdom, brothers and sisters. You see what I'm saying? But there are things that you can learn now, right? And who better to learn it through by the wisdom of Solomon? Of course, that's by the Spirit of God, brothers and sisters, right? So that's what we're going to do here today. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this at 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter. This is why I named this the Spirit of God through the wisdom of Solomon. A lot of jewels in here, brothers and sisters, a lot of jewels, right? Of course, we got the wisest man in history, period. And who else better to learn from than the wisest man in history, period, brothers and sisters, right? Got his wisdom. We're going to see where he got his wisdom from that made him the wisest man in history, right? So 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter. 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 3. If you can like, share, watch party, I really appreciate it. 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 3. 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter, and we're going to start at verse 3. And verse 3 reads, "And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father, only he sacrificed and burnt incense in high places," right? So, of course, we're going to see, of course, he's coming because he wants to petition God. That's why he's bringing these offerings, right? We're going to see what he petitioned for and what he got, right? Verse 4, "And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. 1,000 burnt offerings did Solomon offer upon that altar," right? So he really wants this blessing, right? And that goes to show you how much you are willing to give up, brothers and sisters, in order to get a blessing from God, right? Doesn't matter what you have to offer up. You just want to petition and get that blessing from God, right? Let us continue. Verse 5, "And Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask what I shall give thee," right? So the Lord is ready to come and give him whatever he asked for. But as I stated in the lesson I did last week, brothers and sisters, we have to do it according to his will. And we're going to see if Solomon did this, right? Verse 6, "And Solomon said, Thou hast showed unto thy servant David, my father, great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth, and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day," right? So we know the relationship that God had with David. Now that same relationship is being passed down to his son, right? Who is about to sit on his throne. Verse 7, "And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David, my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in." Now, brothers and sisters, when you are trying to obtain the wisdom of God, that is the first thing you have to start off as, like a little child, right? Admitting that you know nothing. It doesn't even matter whether you think you know something. You come to him like a little child as you know nothing, like you have to be re-raised and retrained and brought up in the way. If you didn't hear this your whole life, and I'm talking about the real breakdown of this your whole life, you have to throw out every preconceived notion you have and be rebuilt in this word, brothers and sisters, right? But if you think you are seasoned, right, and you really seasoned in this word, you still want to come to him like a little child, brothers and sisters, because that's God. It's infinite wisdom, right? Wisdom that you can't even understand while you're in this flesh. So you should be coming to him like a little child, right? So let's see let's continue this. Verse 8, "And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people." That is the first thing he asked for, brothers and sisters. And of course, as we get, if we go further into this, we're going to see that wisdom that he was given, right? And we're going to benefit from that wisdom he was given by God, right? So it says, verse 9, give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? And so, brothers and sisters, if you get the judgments of God and the wisdom and discernment from God, brothers and sisters, everything else will be added to your life. That is the first thing you want to establish, because if you talking about, even if you want to get big money, a fool that has money, the money is quickly gone out of his hand, right? I'm paraphrasing, but that is a quote, right? That is a saying. A fool's money quickly departs out of his hand, right? He doesn't have the wisdom of God and to be able to judge and discern what is good, what is bad, right? And so this is what Solomon is asking God to give him, right? But then when you get that, you're going to get the other stuff, and God may well give you that stuff that you didn't ask for, right? Let's see if that is the case here, right? Verse 10. And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing, right? And it pleased him because it was according to God's will, brothers and sisters, right? He didn't ask for things based on his flesh, his fleshly desires. It was based on the will of God, right? Verse 11. And God said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment, behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and an understanding heart. So he's blessed him with this wise and understanding heart, brothers and sisters. Like I said, we're going to see what this wisdom he had, right? Let us continue. So that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. And we want to pay attention to that. Reason why is because if there's nobody like him, that means the wisdom that he was given was unique with God, from God, brothers and sisters. So who better to listen to than Solomon, right? And we're talking about life in general, brothers and sisters. These are the instructions that you should be following to even obtain it, somewhat of what he got, right? But you can get up there if you follow instructions, right? But be content wherever you are, but you can get there if you follow instructions, if you are doing things according to the will of God, if you are asking for judgment according to the will of God, brothers and sisters, right? Let's continue. Verse 13. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked. So he's going to give you something that you're not going to ask to help you out with things according to his will, brothers and sisters, right? So Solomon was not, even though he was the richest man in the world, he did not ask for that. And we got to realize that the richest man in the world, while everybody is sitting here worried about this monetary gain, the richest man in history did not ask for his riches, brothers and sisters. Let us be mindful of that, pertaining to the fact that we want these things in our lives, brothers and sisters, but the people that got them, like Solomon, he didn't ask for it, right? He asked for something better. Let us continue. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days, right? So he would be the most famous king in his day, the richest, wisest king in his day. Everybody would be coming to him for that wisdom, brothers and sisters. So think about it. If he's got that much wisdom and everybody's coming to him about it, of course they're going to give him riches and gold. That's where it's going to stem from, besides other places, right? But we're not going to get into that today, brothers and sisters. We just want to show where he got his wisdom from, and that he asked for that above everything else. He didn't ask for anything else, just wisdom to discern bad from good, and to be able to judge the people of Israel so that he can rule correctly, right? So now let us go and see this wisdom, brothers and sisters. Let's go to Proverbs, the 1st chapter. Right? So we see that the Lord God has blessed him with this wisdom. And now we're going to see that manifest in these writings, brothers and sisters. Proverbs, the first chapter. Proverbs, the first chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Proverbs, the first chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. So when we go through this thing, let's be very, let's pay attention to every little detail, brothers and sisters. We're supposed to be doing that anyway. But let's pay attention to every little detail, because this is what you'll use, these instructions you will use in your everyday living, right? So you don't feel like you're lost when you're trying to be guided in your own life. Right? We have the instructions in our manual, right? Our history book, written by our ancestors through the Spirit of God, or by the Spirit of God, right? Proverbs, the first chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Proverbs, the first chapter, and we are going to start at verse 1. Proverbs 1 and verse 1. Proverbs 1 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, "The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice and judgment and equity," right? So this is what we're about to learn, brothers and sisters, because this is what he was given by God, right? So we want to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity. This creates righteous behavior, right? This creates equality for all people, brothers and sisters. This is what we want to understand, right? And to get this judgment from this wisdom and instruction that we're reading here, right? Verse 4. "To give subtly to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion," because that is how you have to get wisdom for the most part. When it comes to people, it has to subtly come on them. You don't want to force wisdom on anybody, brothers and sisters. It doesn't matter how beneficial you know it is. People have their own time to learn things. Let's just hope it's not too late before the judgment of God, right? But that's what we want to understand. So to give subtly to the simple, to the young man, knowledge and discretion. Here's the difference, though, brothers and sisters. Verse 5, "A wise man will hear and will increase learning." So if he's not doing that, he's not a wise man, brothers and sisters. That's as simple as it gets. If a wise man hears the words of understanding, he will increase learning, right? So if you want to be wise, when you hear something and you don't know about it, listen. And if it's beneficial for your everyday life, or especially with you getting in the kingdom, you got to correct yourself, whatever the case may be, brothers and sisters, you better listen, right? You better listen, right? So a wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsel. That means that man, not only is he going to hear and increase in learning, but he is going to obtain unto wise counsel. He's going to want to be around the wise so that he can learn more, brothers and sisters. See, that's how you know the difference between, and what we're going to get into, that's how you know the difference between the wise man and the fool. Because the fool does not want to be around the wise. The fool will reject knowledge and understanding. But the wise man will hear and learn, right? We're going to go through all of these different characteristics so you can know who you're dealing with. Not only that, so you know what not to become, right? So the wise man will hear and he will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsel. And why will he do that? Verse 6, "To understand a proverb and the interpretation," right? Because we still, even though the word is not of private interpretation, you still have to interpret the word right? You have to rightly divide the word, brothers and sisters, right? So he says to understand a proverb and to in the interpretation the words of the wise and their dark sayings, right? So what's the first thing? The very first thing we have to understand in order to obtain this wisdom, brothers and sisters, right? Verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. That's the difference. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So when you let the fear of the Lord convict you, brothers and sisters, you will start to change your behavior. Why is that? Because you know who you're dealing with. But the fool, he's not gonna want to listen to that, right? So when you're talking to somebody, you don't have, like I said, you don't have to beat nobody up with this book, brothers and sisters. The one thing you got to remember is the wise man, when he hears, he will increase learning and he will obtain unto wise counsel. But the fool, he hates knowledge and wisdom and instruction. He's not going to go into the wise. So that's why you have to allow people to come to you. Let people know what you're about. Let people know you're about knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. But at the end of the day, don't force it on them, because the wise and the fool going to show themselves when you start speaking knowledge, right? The one that comes to you, he's the wise one. And that's who you want to deal with, right? Let's skip down to verse 22. Verse 22. And verse 22 reads, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and the fools hate knowledge. There it go again. The fool hates knowledge. That's why he asks, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? It's time to stop being simple and obtain unto wise counsel, brothers and sisters, right? So what is he instructing us to do? Verse 23 says, turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you, and I will make known my words unto you, right? So turn at the reproof at the Lord. Receive correction, brothers and sisters. Get your behavior in line with God's word, right? Because the fool hates knowledge. He hates instruction, and he delights in his scorning. Don't even deal with somebody too much if you can see that they're a scorner, brothers and sisters. If they want to mock you and all these things, once again, this behavior is going to be described when we break this down. But if these people are like this, you got to discern the one from the other. Because if you get to arguing with the fool, they ain't gonna know the difference between the two of you. That's the problem, right? You build with a wise man. Somebody else comes over. They're wise. They get in the mix. Wisdom starts to increase him. But if you be around the fools, the foolishness starts to increase him. And then they're gonna associate that with God, right? A fool. I'm telling you, a fool get this word in his hand. He starts speaking foolishness. People gonna start thinking God is a fool, because for some reason we can't separate God from the man that's speaking his word. I don't understand that, but hey, it is what it is, right? So let's continue. So now it says, we want to go back. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction, right? So what happens when the fear of the Lord sets in, brothers and sisters? Let's go see that. Let's go to Psalms 111. Psalms 111, and we're going to read one verse. I meant to tell y'all to keep a marker at Proverbs, but Psalms 111, and we're going to start at verse 10. Psalms 111, and we're going to start at verse 10. Psalms 111 and verse 10. And verse 10 reads, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Wisdom, knowledge, understanding. All starts with the fear of the Lord, right? And so when the fear of the Lord sets upon you, brothers and sisters, what comes with it? It says a good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endure forever. So that's how you get a good understanding, brothers and sisters, by doing his commandments. So if you don't do his commandments, that means you don't have a good understanding, right? And so that's simple, right? So that's why the fool is where is at. That's why he's a fool, because he has no understanding. Why? Because he has no fear of the Lord in him. Because he keeps mocking his reproof, scorning and delighting and scorning at his reproof, brothers and sisters, right? And you don't want to fit this category. This is one thing you don't want to fit, because this leads to destruction, right? So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and a good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endure forever. And it's something to this, right? And this is where discernment comes in, brothers and sisters. Let's just say you have two people going back and forth. One of them is saying the other one is wicked, and vice versa, right? You can tell who's telling the truth based on whose wisdom is increasing and whose understanding is increasing versus whose is depleting. I've seen this, brothers and sisters, so trust me when I tell you I know what I'm talking about. You will sit there and talk to this person. This person is slowly losing understanding, right? Because the fear of the Lord is no longer with them, right? But this other person, they fear the Lord, so understanding will increase, right? That's how you can tell if somebody is keeping the law or not, right? That you don't even have to trust them. You trust God. God said if they have a good understanding, they're keeping the commandments, brothers and sisters, because he's not going to keep giving it to them. And guess what? If you start going the other way, he's going to take it from you, right? So that's all I want to say on that one. Judge people by their understanding, brothers and sisters. If they got a good understanding, know that they're doing something right, right? You may not know what's going on in their personal life, but that understanding is speaking for them, right? So let's continue. Let's go now to Proverbs, the 3rd chapter. Proverbs, the 3rd chapter. At the end of the day, what we're going to learn today, brothers and sisters, is everything goes back to the commandments. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding goes back to fearing God and keeping his commandments, right? Everything else will be added onto that. Everything else is a plus. It's extra. But if you don't have that core with you, you have nothing, right? Proverbs 3 and verse 1. Proverbs 3 and verse 1. Proverbs 3 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. There it goes again, right? This is going back. This is going to keep constantly going back to keeping the commandments of God. We need to say that more and more because the world just don't understand that. It's so simple, y'all. Keep the commandments of God and live. That's the simple. Keep the commandments of God and obtain a good understanding. Keep the commandments of God and obtain the wise counsel. Hear the words of the wise and increase in learning. This stuff is not hard at all. At all, right? So he said, My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. So what do you get for doing this other than the stuff that I just stated, right? Verse 2, For length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. And that is, man, that is so true, right? Having the understanding of this book, and when you're going through stuff, brothers and sisters, you can calculate in your mind why it's happening. If you have enough depth in your understanding, you can calculate why you're going through the things you're going through. And if you stumped at one point in time, you will figure it out because God will start directing your paths. Your paths and your light is them commandments. He will. That's all you got to do, brothers and sisters. If you're stumped in life, think about what you're not keeping. Think about what you need to improve on. And those questions you need answered will be answered. It's based on your behavior and your obedience, right? Let us continue. Verse 3. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. So not only the truth, but mercy, brothers and sisters, that has to be, that also has to be said a lot more and applied a lot more, right? Because we need mercy, brothers and sisters, all the mercy we can get, so we need to show all the mercy that we can, right? So let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck and write them upon the table of thine heart. Oh, it seems like Solomon had some type of knowledge about what the new covenant was going to be, right? That the law and the commandments was going to be written in the tables of your heart. That's where it was supposed to be written, period, right? That's where it was supposed to be written. So we can see that there are traces of this thing. Remember, it says the salvation. We knew about salvation from the beginning or foundation of the world, right? Or salvation was created since the foundation of the world, right? So now we see right here, brothers and sisters, that there is a form of understanding the new covenant coming, brothers and sisters. Writing the law in your heart, right? And once again, what does this get you? Verse 4. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man, right? This is about keeping his commandments and writing the law in your heart. You shall find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and brothers and sisters. You having this, it wasn't supposed to get you hated like that, brothers and sisters, other than you represent Jesus. This wisdom is also supposed to get you favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Going back to why they call you Israel. Because you are a prince that has power with God and man and has prevailed. So if you're called by the name of the Lord, brothers and sisters, guess what? You will have blessings and favor, a good understanding, and you shall live, brothers and sisters, right? That's why we don't want to do this next thing coming up. Verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. So you don't want to lean into your understanding because it ain't going to get you nowhere, right? You want to lean unto the Lord's understanding, which is his commandments, brothers and sisters, right? Watch, we going to keep pointing back to these commandments. So if anybody, and that's crazy, if anybody honors, like we always talk about our brothers and sisters and still in these Sunday churches, but if they would just think, if anything, if you honor the wisdom of Solomon, he's telling you to come back to the commandments, right? So the wisest man in the world, the wisest man in history told you to fear God and keep his commandments, but then the church saying the God and his commandments is done away with. Then how is he the wisest man in the world? That means he's foolish. If that's not true, that means that was a foolish statement he made. That means that the church is wiser than Solomon. And we know that's not true, right? Verse 6, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths, right? And that's what you must do, brothers and sisters, right? In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path, right? Verse 7, be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. Don't be wise in your own eyes. I'm telling you, you think your wisdom is stronger and more valuable than God, you're going to find yourself in a ditch, being led to destruction, brothers and sisters, right? You have to depart from evil, and anything that's against the commandments is evil, right? Verse 8, it shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones, brothers and sisters, to depart from evil and keep the commandments, right? What did it say? It will give you length of days, long life, peace. All of these things shall be added unto you, favor and good understanding in the sight of God and with man. I'm going to go with keeping the commandments, brothers and sisters, right? Because this is already manifested in my life. I know if you still in this thing, it's got to be manifested in your life, right? And if you're, like I said, if you're increasing in understanding, if you're constantly increasing in understanding, don't worry about the material things you're not getting. This is your blessing, that understanding. That's how you know the Lord is still with you and he's blessing you. So if he's increasing your understanding, he's going to increase everything else, right? Because that's what comes with having more understanding in life. Where are we at? Proverbs, the 7th chapter. Proverbs, the 7th chapter. Proverbs, the 7th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Proverbs, the 7th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Hold on, y'all. Proverbs 7 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, My son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Said again, right? So you know this is important, brothers and sisters. And I'm reading this to make sure people understand this stuff is not done away with. You cannot have a good understanding without the commandments of God. I see why the Gentiles played on us like that. I see why the Gentiles did thus to bring us into slavery, brothers and sisters. Because without our understanding, we can't protect ourselves. That was genius, getting rid of the law to get rid of our understanding, right? So that we can't even outthink them anymore, right? And get back to where we were, right? Verse 1, My son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Keep my commandments and live, and my law as the apple of thine eye. Verse 3, Bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the table of thine heart. He said it again. So once again, brothers and sisters, this was here from the foundation of the earth. The mentality and the wisdom and knowledge and understanding to understand that we got to keep the commandments and it's going to be written in the tables of our heart. And we're not supposed to forsake these things, and we're supposed to know what comes with them, the blessings that come with them, and be content. But that doesn't mean, like I said, we read how the Most High, if you focus on his wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, he will bless you with riches and honor as well, right? Now, that's not going to be every last one of us, so don't sit here and get carried away, brothers and sisters. Some people he has, his will is not that for them, right? And, but once again, that is because there's something about you that if he gives you that, it's not going to be right. And only he knows that. But you probably figured it out sometime in your life anyway. But only he really knows that, brothers and sisters. So just be content is what I'm saying, right? Let us continue. Let's go to Proverbs, the 13th chapter. Proverbs, the 13th chapter. And we're going to start at verse 18. Proverbs, the 13th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 18. So like I said before, brothers and sisters, he said that he told Solomon that he's going to give him something he didn't ask for, which is riches and honor. But in order for you to get that, or think about even getting that, you have to obtain unto wise counsel and instruction from God, right? And we're going to see that right now. Proverbs 13 and verse 18. Proverbs 13 and verse 18. And verse 18 reads, Poverty and shame shall be to him that refuseth instruction. Poverty and shame, brothers and sisters. If you refuse instruction, these two of these things are going to happen, right? So poverty and shame shall be to him that refuses instruction, but he that regardeth reproof shall be honored. And that's in anything in life. Anything. You can't go somewhere and think that you got it and you ain't been around the wise counsel to receive reproof and instruction. Like, for instance, people think that they're good in, let's say, singing or whatever the case may be, and you got somebody who has been making hits for years on top of years, who has brought up legends in the game, and then they tell you, you need to do this, you need to do this. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You just jealous. See, that's a person that's going to have poverty and shame. You ain't going to make it, right? You just not going to make it. But if you regard it reproof, right, you shall be honored. You shall get those things that you want to obtain, brothers and sisters, right? So that's what you should be aiming for, to receive instruction and correction and to change whatever you got to change to get the results that you want to get that reward, right? Verse 19 in Let's listen to this. Verse 19. The desire accomplished is sweet to the soul, especially when you are receiving instruction, right? And then those desires that you want, if they're accomplished, brothers and sisters, it is sweet to the soul, right? We all know how we feel when things that we've been planning out and goals that we've been planning out, we get or we obtain or we overcome, whatever the case may be, brothers and sisters, right? It's sweet to the soul, right? Let us continue. But it is an abomination to fools to depart from evil. So you know you're in trouble if it is an abomination to depart from evil. You know you're in trouble. You are a stone cold fool, right? So depart from evil and turn to God. Receive his reproof and his instruction, brothers and sisters, right? And this is all of what Solomon was getting from God, right? And of course he understands reproof because he went off the road, so to speak, right? He went off the road and he had to get back on the road, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Verse 20. He that walketh with the wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. So if you just hanging around fools, eventually destruction comes behind that, right? But if you walk with the wise, you shall be wise, right? So these simple things that we've seen, brothers and sisters, stay away from fools. Stay away from people who hate knowledge and instruction. If you know you around something that's beneficial for your life, and then you got somebody that don't want to hear it, they don't want to be bothered with it, or they trying to put you down and make you feel inadequate for trying to get it. No, brothers and sisters, you stay away from those people, right? Verse 21. Evil pursueth sinners, but to the righteous good shall be repaid. Right? So that's what we want to understand, brothers and sisters. If evil is following you too much now we all know that you can be tested by God just like Job was. But if evil is following you too much and you know you're not keeping them commandments, you need to sit down, especially when you hear the law and you hear, oh man, there's some things I'm slipping on. I got to get on business. Well, that's why bad things are happening in your life, because evil is pursuing the sinner, right? Right, but like he said, but to the righteous good shall be repaid. So if you're always getting blessings in life, if you keep in the commandments, right? That's a case, a catch to that. It's an if to that, a condition. If you are keeping the commandments and things are happening to you, this is because this was spoken by the word of God, brothers and sisters, the Spirit of God, right? Let us continue. Verse 22. A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and to the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just, right? So they always talking about reparations and things like that, brothers and sisters. All this money in this world, all these riches and things that nature that's being collected by the heathen and the other nations that have put us in this predicament is being stored up for us. So you don't even have to envy them. Right? You can go to Isaiah, the 61st chapter, or the 60th chapter, my bad. Isaiah, the 60th chapter, you'll see what's going to happen to the wealth of the wicked. It's going to be used to build back up the holy city. Right? So we don't have to worry about that, right? But also a good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children. If you're not thinking about that, you have not come to manhood yet. And I'm talking about before you even have children, brothers and sisters. A man is going to be thinking about that, period. What am I going to leave behind from my descendant? I know I'm thinking about it, and I ain't got no children, right? I'm thinking about that now, right? Because everything you do from now on out is going to affect the life you live later and the life of the descendants that come after you, right? So for the men, leave an inheritance. That's what your mind frame should be, because you're not always going to be here, right? So we want to understand that, right? So let's continue. Let's go to Proverbs, the 14th chapter now, right? So we talked about the man. What would make a good man, brothers and sisters? So in the reverse, a bad man ain't thinking about what he's going to leave for his family. That's a fool, right? But let's get up to the other side, right? We're not going to be one-sided with this, right? Proverbs 14 and verse 1. Proverbs 14 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, every wise woman buildeth her house, but the foolish plucketh it down with her hands, right? So if you're not, as a woman, if you're not building up your house, you are foolish, right? A foolish woman is going to pluck down her house with her hands. So a wise woman going to build up her house, and a good man going to leave an inheritance for his children's children. It's going that far, brothers and sisters. This is how two is going to be able to maintain a household, by these instructions. You don't follow these instructions, you a fool and you're going to be destroyed. Right? Period. Verse 2. He that walketh in his uprightness feareth the Lord, but he that is perverse in his ways despises him. Right? So if you out here just wilding out, not giving a care in the world, brothers and sisters, you hate and despise the Lord. If you don't keep his commandments, you hate him. There is no, the law was done away with, Jesus died. No, you hate him. You hate him, right? But if you walk in his uprightness and fear of him, you love him, brothers and sisters, right? And he's not going to take vengeance upon you. Verse 3, and the mouth of the foolish is the rod of pride, but the lips of the wise shall preserve them, right? And you always know somebody, you could be having a regular conversation. The facts could be on the table, brothers and sisters, but the person still wants to argue back and forth, right? And so if you arguing back and forth, pride is in the midst of that, brothers and sisters, because now y'all want to prove each other wrong. It should be about edifying that person, right? And if they don't want it, if you see that they're foolish, in the conversation. Because once again, if you got a wise man and a fool arguing with each other, and person walk by, they not going to know the difference. And that's bad when the people don't know the difference between you and a fool. So don't even bother, right? It's not necessary because all you're dealing with is pride, right? But it says the lips of the wise shall preserve them, right? Let's skip down to verse 5. Verse 5. A faithful witness will not lie, but a false witness will utter lies. And of course, you don't want to be around no liars, right? You got to stay away from these people, brothers and sisters. This wisdom is also showing you the type of friends that you want to be around, the type of brothers and sisters that you want to hang around and be a part of your circle, right? Because if they fit these categories of bad and negative, you can discern good and bad, just like Solomon when he asked the Lord for that wisdom, right? Verse 6, this is interesting right here, right? Verse 6, a scorner seeketh wisdom and findeth it not. Wow, how is that possible? If you're seeking the Lord and his wisdom, shouldn't you find it? No, because if you're scorner, you have what you call a confirmation bias. You are looking for things that coincide with your already existing beliefs. And it doesn't matter if them beliefs are false, is I don't know what, brothers and sisters. You're going to hold on to them. Therefore, the true wisdom that you need, you're not going to find it. Why? Because you hate knowledge. You hate reproof. A scorner hates reproof. He's not going to attain to that real wise counsel. So the wisdom he's going to be looking for is stuff that is already satisfying his desires. And he will not change and be corrected, right? So that's why he doesn't find it, right? But it says, but knowledge is easy unto him that understandeth, because he's just going to take it right then and there, right? So you don't have to worry about somebody coming along, and then when you give them instruction and sound doctrine, they want to look for it somewhere else because they're scorners, brothers and sisters. But if you give it to somebody as wise, it's going to be real easy for them to pick it up, right? Let us continue. So, because of all these things, here's more instruction. Verse 7. Go from the presence of a foolish man when thou perceivest not in him the lips of knowledge. That's why I told y'all, don't be sitting here arguing around with no fool. If his lips don't disperse knowledge, depart from him. Go from the presence of him. Don't constantly, eventually you dealing with a fool, he hates reproof. Them people that gonna rend you or hurt you. They gonna want to beat you down, or even worse, they gonna want to kill you because you telling them some knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And that don't make no sense, right? So go from the presence of them, right? Verse 8, the wisdom of the prudent is to understand his way, even if it's good or bad. Because that prudent person is going to reprove themselves, brothers and sisters. They're going to hear the reproof from the word of God, and they're going to understand their way. They're going to understand, hey, I need to change this, such and such and such, what, bam. Or if they're doing good, hey, this is the reason why I'm getting such and such, right? But it says, but the folly of fools is deceit, right? Because he's lying to himself like he does not have to change. And then he's deceiving everybody else as if if his poop don't stink, right? I had to say the right word. So if his poop don't stink, right? Verse 9. Fools make a mock at sin, but among the righteous there is favor. And that is primarily why the fool is going to be destroyed, why he can't. Remember, the scorner and the fool, all of these things are synonymous, brothers and sisters. So that's why they can't obtain real wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. They can't be real with themselves. They delight in the scorning of the word of God, brothers and sisters. Why? Because they make a mock at sin, right? And so when you make a mock at sin, guess what? The vengeance of God is going to come upon you. So you're going to be destroyed, right? But it says among the righteous, there is favor. There goes that favor again, brothers and sisters. So we want to see these things that are repetitive so it can be stamped in your mind to follow the instructions of God, right? Verse 10, the heart knoweth his own bitterness, and a stranger does not intermeddle with his joy. I'm sorry, I think I went too far. Yeah, I went too far. So let's go to the next one. Let's go to Proverbs, the 15th chapter. Proverbs, the 15th chapter. Next chapter, Proverbs 15 and verse 1. Proverbs 15 and verse 1. So it's also going to teach you how to deal and speak to people, right? Proverbs 15 and verse 1 reads, a soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger, right? So if you are giving people grievous words, if you're insulting and you're belittling these people, especially when you're trying to get them to understand the word of God, this stirs up anger, brothers and sisters, right? We have to know that, right? If you always criticizing somebody and you don't have to, if you always being so harsh and things like that and you don't have to, you're going to stir up anger and nobody going to get nowhere. When people are angry, they can't receive things. Not the average person, right? But people can't receive stuff when they're angry, brothers and sisters, right? They cannot, right? Verse 2. The tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. Why? Because his lips do not obtain knowledge, right? And so he's going to pour out foolishness, but the person who has the wise tongue, they will use wisdom and knowledge aright. They will use it for the benefit of the other person or themselves, right? Verse 3. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. So you can't think that you're hiding your sins from God. He sees you, brothers and sisters, right? So it's best to turn at his reproof and fix your behavior, right? Let us continue. But perverseness therein is a breach in spirit, A fool despises his father's instruction, but he that regardeth reproof is prudent. So once again, a prudent person understands their way, and the prudent person is also going to regard reproof, instruction, correction. This is what this lesson is really about, starting off as, brothers and sisters, to get you to understand, come back to the commandments of God, turn at the reproof of the Lord, and follow his instructions, right? Understanding the difference between a fool and the wise so that you can decide which one you want to be. Because some of us, we really don't acknowledge, even when knowledge is in front of us or being told to us, that we are being foolish. And we need to catch ourselves, right? We all have foolish moments, right? But that don't mean you have to be a full-fledged fool, right? Let us continue. Let's see where I'm at. Oh, verse 6. In the house of the righteous is much treasure, but in the revenues of the wicked is trouble, right? So if you are trying to make money with wicked people, you're going to run into trouble, brothers and sisters. How did they get or obtain that revenue? They did wicked things to obtain that revenue, right? So you want to deal with the house of righteousness for whatever treasure that you're trying to obtain, right? Verse 7, the lips of the wise disperseth knowledge, but the heart of the foolish doth not so. So knowledge, knowing something, brothers and sisters, to know something is to be wise and to listen and turn to reproof, right? But the fool does not have knowledge, right? Let us continue. Verse 8, the sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. Now, it's crazy because he's not even interested in burnt offerings and sacrifice or any type of offering or sacrifice. He said, obey my voice. So the sacrifice of the person that doesn't obey his voice is an abomination to him, brothers and sisters, right? But it says, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. So if you are upright, coming to him in prayer, he's delighted to do the things that you want to ask, that you ask of him according to his will, right? Let us continue. Verse 10. Correction is grievous unto him that forsaketh the way, and he that hateth reproof shall die. So the only reason why people cannot correct themselves is because they forsaken the way. They forsook the God and his commandments, right? They want to do their own, they want to follow behind their own lust and their own desire, brothers and sisters, right? Because to a fool, a desire that is accomplished, no matter what desire is accomplished, is a delight to him. But it can be an abomination to God. So it can be a delight to you, but an abomination to God. You in trouble, right? And then it says that he that hateth reproof shall die. That is the end result of not following instruction, right? Let's skip down to verse 12. Verse 12. And verse 12 reads, a scorner loveth not one that reproveth him. That's number one how you could tell the difference, brothers and sisters. If somebody comes to you and they reproving you or trying to correct you, and they getting all crazy about it, and then next thing you know, you done lost your friendship with them. By trying to be a friend. You done lost a friend by trying to be a friend by correcting them. But they hate correction and reproof. It says, the scorner loveth not the one that reproveth him. That's why you don't cast your pearls before swine. Skip it. I know what type of person this person is. I'm not even finna bother. Because all they gonna do is want to hurt me or want to do something to me. Some type of animosity and hostility. And I don't have time for it, right? It says, neither will he go unto the wise, right? Just like we got a person with a reprobate mind, he's going to go around other people who have that same mind frame. He cannot stay around the wise, brothers and sisters. He cannot stay around the people of God. That's why I always say, if you It doesn't matter if you see somebody and they so-called slip in a backslide. If they're coming around the people of God, you can retrieve them. Because that's one of the signs when they're leaving out they leaving out of the truth is because they don't want to come around the people who are in the truth. Right? So remember, it says that a wise man will obtain unto wise counsel, but the fool will not go unto the wise. That's another description of how you can discern the difference between the two, brothers and sisters, right? Let's see. I'll read this. This is extra. Verse 14. The heart of him that have understanding seeketh knowledge, but the mouth of fools feedeth on foolishness, right? So it's another characteristic, brothers and sisters, because the heart of the wise man is going to constantly seek knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And when he hears it, he's going to increase in learning, right? So let us continue. Now let's go to Ecclesiastes, the first chapter. Right? So we get these different characteristics from this wisdom. Solomon was given wisdom to be able to discern the difference between the wise man and the fool, right? But this is another thing that y'all don't want to get too caught up, because if you're wise versus the fool, y'all got one place to go, both of y'all. So you ain't no time to be getting cocky because you've gotten the wisdom of God. No time to be getting puffed up with your knowledge because of the wisdom of God, because both of y'all gonna die, right? You can't, that same wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, other than the mercy of the Most High God, you cannot obtain eternal life. That is mercy, brothers and sisters, not nothing that we deserve. That is mercy. Everything, all of this is mercy to be able to obtain this wisdom and this knowledge, brothers and sisters, right? Ecclesiastes, the first chapter. Ecclesiastes, the first chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Ecclesiastes, the first chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Ecclesiastes 1 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity, right? So he's about to get into living life on this earth, brothers and sisters, and obtaining all of these things, and the mind frame that he's obtained, the perspective that he's obtained for having these things. Remember, Solomon was able to do anything he wanted. He had all these riches and things of that nature. So like I said, we'll go out there and say, for instance, we got this guy, he's in investments or whatever the case may be, and he's rich and things like that, and he's wealthy. You're ready to go to him because he's rich and wealthy to listen to him. But nobody was more rich and wealthy than this man. So we need to listen to him and his wisdom, right? So he say, vanity of vanity, all is vanity. At the end of the day, it's all vain, right? Because at the end of the day, what counts is keeping the commandments and getting into the kingdom of God, right? So if you understand that, you will not let this stuff get to you too much. You will not let this stuff get you too puffed up or too down, right? And at the end of the day, when it comes to you wanting to do things that you desire to do, brothers and sisters, that are according to the word of God, the fact that all is vanity will get you to understand, hey, I might as well just try it anyway, because I'm going to die one day. I'm down here already. I'm already keeping the commandments of God, so I might as well put my might into anything that I desire to do or my passion or what I want to do, right? But at the end of the day, all is vanity, right? So it's in verse 3, what profit have a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. In other words, you're not going to be here forever, brothers and sisters. One generation comes and one generation goes. You're not going to be here forever, but the earth will, right? So you want to make sure, hey, you're on the new heavens and new earth by keeping these commandments of God at the end of the day, right? Let's skip down to verse 8. Skip down to verse 8. Verse 8 reads, all things are full of labor, man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, the eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing, right? So you're never satisfied, right? This flesh is never satisfied. That's what we talked about, being content. But it's crazy because the content is really going to come from this man, because he's going to explain, man, all this stuff is vain. I didn't obtain all these riches. I didn't have all type of stuff. I didn't got everything that I wanted right when I wanted, and all of this is vain. Now watch what I say. If a person, they already say that rich people, brothers and sisters, are kind of miserable, right? They're kind of miserable. But they're miserable, brothers and sisters, is because they don't have the knowledge of God. That they're just out there empty. They got money, brothers and sisters, but they're dead. They're dead inside, right? Because if you don't have this, you're not alive, right? Let's skip down to verse 9. Verse 9. The thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun, brothers and sisters, right? That's why it's good that we have our elders, because they have already gone through things that we're going through now, brothers and sisters. There's no new thing under the sun. So what do we have to do? Obtain unto wise counsel and instruction, and we'll be able to overcome any adversity that we're going through, any obstacle that we're going through, because guess what? Somebody already went through it and got past it. You just have to what? Turn at the reproof, receive correction and instruction, and follow through with it, right? Not forsake it, right? Let us continue. Verse 10. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It have been already of old time, which was before us, which we stated, right? So, verse 11. There is no remembrance of the former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of the things that are to come to those that shall come after, right? So like I said, we want to understand there is nothing new, brothers and sisters. There is absolutely nothing new. Whatever you're going through, somebody went through it already, and you can obtain the wise counsel to figure out how you get out of your situation as well, right? Let's skip down to verse 16. Verse 16. And verse 16 reads, I commune with my own heart, saying, lo, I am come to a great estate, and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yea, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. Remember, he said he got more knowledge than all they that came before him in Jerusalem, right? Then the Lord God said there was not going to be anybody like him, no king like unto him in all his days. So, of course, this makes sense, right? But that's because he did all of the things that he is instructing us to do, right? Seek that wisdom. Seek it out, brothers and sisters. Turn to reproof. Follow wisdom and instruction, and you will get the wisdom that you're looking for, right? You will get the results that you are looking for, right? But when you obtain wisdom and understanding and knowledge, there's a flip side to it, right? So let's see that flip side. He said, I had come to a great estate and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yea, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly, right? So you can know madness and folly, to have knowledge of madness and folly, brothers and sisters, right? He said, I perceive that this also is vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that it increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. That's especially if you're dealing with scorners and fools and people that just don't care about the word of God or anything. They just hate knowledge, and they love and delight in their scorning. They love foolish things, right? You see all of this, brothers and sisters? This is grievous and vexation to your spirit. It's grief, right? Because you know what is going to happen to people if they don't turn back to the Lord, right? That's why you're going to be sorrowful when these things. I'll tell you, I have my moments where sometimes I'll be in the bed just down, and I'll be like, dang, because I'll be thinking about what is the head and what is to come to the people that don't follow the word of God, right? So we got to understand that is a painful experience to go through when you care about your loved ones and they do not want to listen, right? So let us continue. Now we're going to the next chapter, Ecclesiastes, the second chapter. Ecclesiastes, the second chapter. Ecclesiastes, the second chapter, and we're going to start at verse 4. Ecclesiastes 2 and 4. And verse 4 reads, I made me great works. I builded me houses. And I planted me vineyards, right? So he built houses. He planted vineyards. He had all of these things, brothers and sisters, that a lot of people want. Houses, like you say, houses, cars, clothes, all of it. He had it all, brothers and sisters, right? But we're going to see the perspective that he ended up getting with all of these things, right? So he said, I made me great works. I builded me houses and I planted me vineyards. Let's skip down to verse 7. Verse 7. And verse 7 reads, he said, I got me servants and maidens and had servants born in my house. Also, I had great possessions of great and small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. So he had more than anybody in Jerusalem, brothers and sisters, is what he's saying. He had more knowledge. He had gained more understanding than all they that were in Jerusalem, and great possession, right? So once again, let us see what his perspective ended up becoming, right? Verse 8, I gathered me also silver and gold and a peculiar treasure of kings and of the provinces. I got me men singers and women singers and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts, right? So he had money, right? He had more money than he needed, actually. But he had money, brothers and sisters. This is why he ended up, and it makes sense why he ended up saying, like, don't give me too much or don't give me too little, right? I don't want to get too much and forget about you. And I don't want to get too little because I'm going to forget about you because I'm going to start stealing to provide for myself, right? But he ended up getting something that God didn't, that he didn't even ask God for. And look what he's about to tell you with all of this stuff. That's why we should be mindful of that, brothers and sisters, because we're out here asking God, please, Lord, I need some more money, this, that, and that. We asking God. Ain't nothing wrong with getting money now. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But we're sitting here asking God and begging God for us to get these riches and stuff like that. But when we got this guy that's sitting here, he gonna be like, man, it ain't even as cracked up as y'all think it is. It ain't even cracked up to be. I didn't have all of this stuff, right? But he's gonna tell us, like I said, what his perspective ended up becoming. Let's continue. Verse 9. So I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me. That's the one thing you want to keep. I don't care how much you're getting. Your wisdom better stay with you, brothers and sisters. The wisdom from this book, right? Verse 10, and whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. So whatever he wanted, he got. He had that much. He got what he wanted, brothers and sisters, right? Remember, it says the desire accomplished is sweet to the soul. So he said, whatsoever my eyes desired, I kept not from them, and withheld not my heart from any joy, right? Because you rejoice in your souls in delight when you get what you desire, right? Verse 11, then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. So he still is saying this stuff is all vain and vanity and vexation of spirit, right? Look at what he said he had though, y'all, right? And he's still saying this stuff is vain and vexation of spirit, right? He gonna say something else that make you be like, dang, do I even want to be that rich, right? Let us continue. Verse 12. And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly, for what can the man do that cometh after the king, even that which hath been already done? Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, and far as light excelleth darkness. And the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool's walketh in darkness, right? And I myself perceive also that one event happened to them all. And this is what we're getting into, is that you don't want to get too puffed up on the knowledge that you're getting, because one event gonna happen to that fool and that wise person. That's why that wise person has to humble himself, because he knows that. And he has to be careful, right? He definitely has to be careful, right? Let us continue. Verse 15. Then said I in my heart, as it happened to the fool, so it happened even to me. And why was I then more wise? Why was I then more wise? Because I can't stop myself from dying and things of that nature. I can't stop myself from stinking and all this other stuff, from rotting. I can't stop all of that, right? Only God can stop that, right? Let us continue. Then I said in my heart that this also is vanity, for there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever. Seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man? As the fool, right? So they both gonna die, brothers and sisters, and we have to understand that before we get too puffed up, right? Now here's the surprising thing. Now this is real. This is real, right? Verse 17. He said, "Therefore I hated life." He said, "Therefore I hated life." After having all these things, brothers and sisters, he turns around and say, "Therefore I hated life." But let's see why he said that. He said, "Because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit." So the work that has to be done, this going all the way back to the garden, brothers and sisters. Because if sin didn't come into the world, you wouldn't have to work to the sweat of your brow and until you go back into the ground, brothers and sisters. That's why this stuff is vexation of spirit, because we weren't even supposed to be doing this, right? Shalom, shalom to you, bro. We weren't even supposed to be doing this, right? Working this hard and stuff like that so that we can provide for our families. We were supposed to be doing the work for the Lord in the garden, being fruitful, multiplying and replenishing the earth and giving people the knowledge, wisdom of God, producing godly offspring. But since sin came into the world, now you got to go through this vexation of spirit. Excuse me. Right? Verse 18, he said, "Therefore, yea, I hated." I'm sorry, let's read 17 over. "Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me." Ooh, remember, a good man got to leave an inheritance for his children's children. So I got to sit here and leave this for my children. But guess what? How I know he gonna be better than me or more wise than I am? I might work for all of this stuff and then give it to my children. He gonna mess it up. So everything I work for, brothers and sisters, has been messed up by my own descendants. That is vanity and vexation of spirit. And he gonna get into that too, right? Watch. Verse 19. "And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool?" Because you don't know. You don't know how your children are going to turn out. You don't know how they're going to take your inheritance. Are they going to multiply it, or is it going to deplete? These are things in life that y'all have to be concerned about. All of us, right? He said, "Yet shall he have rule over my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun, this is also vanity, because I proved I proved that I deserve this labor by the wisdom that I have obtained, by the wisdom that I've applied, the knowledge that I have applied to my everyday living to get the estate that I have. But guess what? I'm going to die, and it's going to be passed on to whoever it is inherited to, right? Verse 20. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity, yet to a man that have not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. Right? So a man that don't he gonna leave nothing for his portion, brothers and sisters. But the one that has knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, he's going to get a labor for his portion that he can pass down to the next generation, right? And that's what we want to understand, right? But then he said, this is also vanity and a great evil, right? So I can work for this stuff, and then I pass it to my children, it can be lost, or I do nothing and I don't get nothing from my portion, right? So you got a decision to make, but all of it is vanity and vexation of spirit because you just don't know what's going to happen, right? You can work for this, but you can't take it with you. That's why I said it's not even worth trying to get all discombobulated over materialistic stuff, over monetary stuff. You better be seeking the reproof, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of God through his commandments, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Let's go to the next chapter. Ecclesiastes, the third chapter. Ecclesiastes, the third chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Excuse me. Ecclesiastes, the third chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. And verse 1 reads, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. So, period in life, brothers and sisters, you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. That is what this is talking about. And that there's a purpose for everything that you do, right? And it's going back and forth with those purposes and their opposites, right? So he said, it's verse 4, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. You're not always going to be happy, brothers and sisters. You're not always going to be upset, angry, and sad. If you're always happy, you ain't going to appreciate nothing and you ain't going to be satisfied with nothing. If you're always sad, same thing applies, right? Let us continue. Verse 5, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, right? So you can embrace somebody, brothers and sisters, or whatever the case may be, but sometimes you don't want to embrace everything that comes to you, brothers and sisters. It's a time and a season and a purpose for everything, right? Verse 6, a time to get and a time to lose. That's why don't be too upset, brothers and sisters, when you lose something, even if it's valuable. Guess what? You're going to get something else that's more valuable. It's going to keep going like that, right? That's why even Job said, does the Lord not take it away and doesn't give and take away, right? I'm paraphrasing. But basically, the Lord is going to give and the Lord is going to take, right? So you're going to get and you're going to lose throughout your life, right? Let us continue. It says, a time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. Not every situation calls for you to say something or respond to it, brothers and sisters. Sometimes the best response is silence. Right? Because it is a time and purpose for everything, right? Verse 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. Right? So these are the things that you have to understand, brothers and sisters. Wisdom will tell you not everything is going to be good and not everything is going to be bad. And that there's a time to do everything, right? If you do these things at the wrong time, you're going to get the wrong results. Right? It's just as simple as that, right? Let us continue. Now let's go to Ecclesiastes, the 4th chapter. Ecclesiastes, the 4th chapter. Just in life in general, brothers and sisters, the Lord has given Solomon the wisdom not only to be able to judge his people, but for us to learn about that same judgment as well, brothers and sisters, right? Because he used that judgment to judge his people. You don't think he was teaching them as well? So we're learning the things that Solomon was learning from God, right? Ecclesiastes 4 and verse 1. Ecclesiastes 4 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, "So I returned and considered all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of such as were oppressed, and they had no comforter," right? But we know we got a comforter, which is Christ, brothers and sisters. But the people that don't have Christ, they have no comforter. So the oppression that's going on under the sun, these people are lost. They're in tears. They're upset. There's death going on with this oppression, and they do not have a comforter, right? Our comforter is Christ. Our comforter is the Father. Our comforter is the Holy Spirit, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. And they had no comforter, and on the side of their oppression, on the side of their oppressors, there was power, but they had no comforter. So the people that are oppressed have no power or no comforter without Christ, right? So he's seeing all this oppression and all these tears under the heaven, brothers and sisters, and that is what essentially Christ, he's coming to save his people from oppression, but also he's coming to save others from spiritual oppression, brothers and sisters, right? We got spiritual and physical oppression, right? Because we got to be taken out of our captivity and brought back to our land. But everybody else, they just have to get past this spiritual oppression, right? That's done by the people in the wickedness in high places, right? Excuse me. Verse 2. "Wherefore I praise the dead which are already dead more than the living which are yet alive." Why? Because we got to go through all of this. The dead know nothing. They don't feel nothing. They don't envy nothing. None of the sort, brothers and sisters. They are finished with their race. We still got to run, though, right? He said, "Wherefore I praise the dead which is already dead more than the living which are yet alive. Yea, better is he than both they which have not yet been, who have not seen the evil work that is done under the sun." And so he praised the dead which is already dead more than the living which are alive, brothers and sisters. But guess what? The one that ain't even born yet is better than both of them, because he has not seen the evil that is done under the sun, right? And that is a true statement. The people that ain't born yet, they don't know what's going on, right? But the people that have died and gone on, they don't know what's going on. So we're the ones that got to sit here and suffer through all this stuff in this world, right? Let us continue. Verse 4. "Again, I considered all travail and every right work, that for this a man is envied of his neighbor. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit." And then when you are alive and you trying to do the right thing, just like Abel with his own brother Cain, you are envied by your neighbors for just doing the right thing, following the instructions of God, brothers and sisters, following up taking counsel up unto wise counsel, seeking wise counsel, doing things the right way. And these things will make people hate you and envy you and be jealous of you. Your own neighbor, your own people. They will be jealous of you for doing the right things, right? Let us continue. Now we're going to Ecclesiastes, the 5th chapter. Ecclesiastes, the 5th chapter. Wait a minute. No, I'm moving too fast. I'm sorry. Let's skip down to verse 9. Ecclesiastes 4 and 9. Ecclesiastes 4 and 9. So we know that all of these, every right work, you have a man that's going to envy his neighbor. We got to go through that. It says that was vexation and vanity and vexation of spirit, right? But we want to know that we still need people to help us, brothers and sisters. We still need family. We still need friends. We still need more than us. We can't be out here just solo dolo, right? Verse 9. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. So 2 is better than 1, right? Verse 10. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he have not another to help him up. This is all for all the people, I don't need no friends, and this, that, and the other. I can do bad all by myself. So when you fall, that's going to be bad for you. It says when they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe unto him that is alone when he falleth, for he have not another to help him up. You ain't got no help. So you want to be all independent, but you ain't going to have no help. You see what I'm saying? Let us continue. Verse 11. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? If one prevail against him, 2 shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. So we want to understand that we still need people in our lives. But remember, you want to discern the difference between the wise and the fool. You want to seek unto wise counsel. You want to be around the wise and not the fool, right? So yes, 2 heads are better than 1 when both of them are wise, brothers and sisters, right? Because the fool, they gonna fall, but they might not help each other. The fool will probably do that, but 2 wise people, they're not even going to put themselves in that situation. And if they do by chance, by accident, brothers and sisters, they're going to help each other up, right? And we want to understand this as we go throughout our lives. We need to understand this so we don't end up being around the wrong people. It says, go out of the presence of a fool. You have to go out of the presence of him, right? So let us continue. Ecclesiastes 5. Ecclesiastes 5, and we're going to start at verse 1. Ecclesiastes 5, and we're going to start at verse 1. Ecclesiastes 5 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil, right? So be more ready to hear the reproof of God, brothers and sisters, than to come up with sacrifices and oblations and things like that, even though we don't do that, but you know what he's talking about. I don't require you to sacrifice. I'm not requiring you to try to pay off the things that you have done. I need you to obey my voice, right? So I want you to come into the house of God and be ready to hear instruction, correction, reproof, and to change your ways, brothers and sisters, right? Then to come in and give sacrifice. Why? Because these people that do that, they do not consider that they do evil. They don't look at themselves. They cannot take accountability for themselves. When you start taking accountability, that means you're hearing the instruction, you're hearing the proof, and you are changing as it's being told to you. right? That's how you quickly will turn your life around. When you stop not taking accountability for your actions, brothers and sisters, right? Verse 2, be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. Excuse me. Let's see. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore, let thy words be few, right? Because we know people just run their mouth, especially if they're happy and they're excited, brothers and sisters, and things are going well for them. They tend to make promises they know that they're not going to keep. The only reason they say the promises is because they're excited, because they feeling good. Oh man, I feel generous today. Today you feel generous. Tomorrow, the thing you promised yesterday, you don't even want to do anymore, right? And the Lord, he said, don't be rash with thy mouth, to let your heart be hasty to utter anything before God, because we're getting into making vows and promises, right? Whether it's to people, we can go back to the law in Numbers 30, whether it's to people or whether it's to God, you better do what you promise somebody, right? Or don't promise them at all. Let your yeas be yeas and your nays be yays. This is what this is getting into, right? Verse 3, for a dream cometh through to the multitude of business, and a fool's voice is known by the multitude of words. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he hath no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. So a fool makes a vow and doesn't pay it, especially when he made it to God. But that's what a fool does, brothers and sisters. So if somebody is making promises to you and they not keeping it, what is it? What are we instructed to do? Go from the presence of that person. If they keep making promises to you and they not keeping them, get away from that person, right? That is what you're supposed to do. Let us continue. Verse 5, better is it that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. Suffer not thine mouth to cause thy flesh to sin, right? Because when you swear an oath and you don't pay it, that is sin, brothers and sisters. You are breaking the law, right? It says, neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore shouldest God be angry at thy voice and destroy the work of thine hands? Excuse me, right? Because the angel not going to play with you. Once God sends that angel, ain't no forgiveness, ain't no nothing, ain't no negotiating, ain't no pleading, nothing. He's coming to do his job. So do not make a vow with God and not pay it, brothers and sisters. Don't be rash with your mouth. Just because you're getting excited, don't be saying and promising, saying stuff you know you're not going to do. Right? Just keep your mouth closed. Like I said in the chapter 2, it's a time and a purpose for everything. A time to speak and a time to keep silence. Right? So especially when it comes to this, you do not want to say the wrong things. Right? Verse 7, for in the multitude of dreams and many words there are also divers vanities, but fear thou God, right? Vanity, like I said, people just be talking. They really not about what they say. They just be in the moment, and they just get to saying stuff just out the side of their neck, right? But God, like I said, if you made that vow and you swore that oath, he ain't gonna play with you. You don't pay it, he gonna send that angel your way, right? So let's continue. Let's go to the next chapter. Chapter 6, and we are going to start at verse 1. Ecclesiastes 6 and verse 1, the next chapter. And verse 1 reads, there is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it is common among men. A man to whom God hath given riches, wealth, and honor, so that he wanteth nothing for his soul of all that he desireth, yet God giveth him not power to eat thereof, but a stranger eateth it. This is vanity, and it is an evil disease, right? So somebody, say for instance, brothers and sisters, you done worked to get to the point where you got riches, you got wealth, you got honor. Then something, and you're getting everything your soul desired. Then something happens where a stranger now is coming to reap the benefits of your labor. He said, this is a great evil and this is a vanity. It is just like you giving, even though you know as a good man, you have to give an inheritance. But then the child or the children that come after you, who knows whether they're going to be wise or a fool? Yeah, you already proved yourself to be wise, but you don't know what's going to happen with your children. You hope for the best that they receive the instruction you gave them, but you really don't know. And you're not going to know if you're not here, right? So same thing, you could be doing all this work and things of that nature, and a stranger comes by and he starts eating all the proceeds of your labor, brothers and sisters. That is a evil disease, he said, right? Like a plague. Verse 3, if a man beget 100 children and live many years, so that the days of his years be many, and his soul be not filled with good, and also that he have no burial, I say that an untimely birth is better than he. This man, he lived to have 100 children, and he lived for many years, but his soul was not filled with good, and he didn't even get a burial. He got 100 children, and he didn't get a burial, which shows you that he was not honored and respected by his own children. Right? And his life was not filled with good. He said, an untimely birth is better than he. You do not want to go. That's why I take care of your children. Do not provoke your children, brothers and sisters. And also make sure that you do what you desire to do with all your might and with all your heart, brothers and sisters. That is within the realm of God. That is within the realm of the commandments of God, right? Because an untimely birth can be better than that. It's better than that to be living and you're not filled with, and the desires of your heart have not been accomplished, brothers and sisters, right? You ain't even got no burial. Like, dang, what kind of life did you live, right? Let us continue. For he cometh in with vanity and departeth in darkness, and his name shall be covered with darkness. Nobody even gonna remember this guy, right? So you just lived, you didn't have a good life. And then after that, nobody even remembers who you are. You ain't even got no burial. Your children don't care about you. That's not a good life to live, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Moreover, he have not seen the sun nor known anything. This have more rest than the other. Yea, though he lived 1,000 years twice told, yet hath he seen no good. Do not all go to one place. This man seen no good. He got all these years, but he didn't see no good in his life, right? Verse 7, all the labor of man is for his mouth, and yet the appetite is not filled, right? Because the natural man, the appetite is never filled. You're never satisfied, brothers and sisters. That's why you need to fill yourself with this spirit, right? So that you can learn how to be content with things while you're waiting on the things that you ask for that God is going to bless you with, right? But you have to be content, right? But the natural man gonna want what he want, and then when he get it, he's still not gonna be satisfied, right? Let us continue. Let's go to the next chapter. 7:1. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 1. Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth, right? So remember, you want to keep a good name. Not that you have to be so overwhelmed about what people think about you, brothers and sisters, but you do want a good report. Right? So you can't be out here sitting and being a stumbling block and not doing things with etiquette and doing things with expedience, brothers and sisters, because guess what? Your name going to be ruined. If you have the instructions to keep a good name, stay within those instructions, right? We're not telling you to, like I said, be overwhelmed or constantly bothered about what other people think about you. Your good name is good for people to come to God. You are a vessel of God, so you have to represent God by having a good name, right? Verse 2, It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart, right? So it is better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting. One of the reasons why, brothers and sisters, is because of the appreciation that you will gain when you are mourning. And then you start feasting. Now you're joyful. Now you're happy and things of that nature, right? And then also when it comes to when people die, you're going into the house of mourning. People die, right? And then instead of the house of feasting, because you know, hey, it's better to go there because that is the end result. It's over with. But if I have joy and I'm feasting and I'm partying around, evil is laying right there at the door to get me, right? And knock me off my square, and then God will end up cutting me off, right? I don't have to worry about God cutting me off if I'm dead. But I got to constantly worry about God cutting me off if I'm living, brothers and sisters. I got to be on business, right? Let us continue. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance, the heart is made better, right? So like I said, you learn to appreciate coming from being sorrow to being happy. You learn to appreciate things, because if you're always happy, you're always laughing about things, eventually that's going to get dull, and that is not going to fulfill you. It is a time and a place for everything, right? And the purpose and the season for everything, right? Verse 4, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of the fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools, right? Why? Because it's going to lead to destruction. You listening to them song of fools, you're going to be led into destruction. You listen to the wise, you're going to preserve your soul, brothers and sisters, right? The rebuke or the reproof of the wise, right? So he says, for as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This is also vanity, because he's laughing, brothers and sisters. He's a yes man. He's pumping and he's gassing you up, but he needs to really rebuke you because you're going down the wrong path. That is not a friend. Somebody that is constantly gassing you up in your error is not a friend. That's your enemy, brothers and sisters. And you need to not blind yourself to your own error. So when you run into this type of person, you can discern, oh man, this is a hater. This person don't want me to improve in my life. They want me to stay down and in my error, right? Let us continue. Now let us go. Where am I at? Oh, let us go to the next chapter, Ecclesiastes 8. Ecclesiastes, the 8th chapter. Excuse me. Ecclesiastes, the 8th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. Ecclesiastes, the 8th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 1. And verse 1 reads, who is as the wise man, and who knoweth the interpretation of a thing? A wise man's wisdom maketh his face to shine, and the boldness of his face shall be changed, right? So wisdom changes the countenance of your face, right? Because now you're more confident. Now you're more bold, brothers and sisters. That's why you want to take in this word. You don't want to be down and feeling down about yourself. This, especially if you're an Israelite, it comes with shame, yes, because you know what your ancestors have done, that we're the only ones that was given the laws and the covenant of God, and we turned away from it. We were the only ones loved by God, and we turned away from it. That's shame we got to carry with us, but also, brothers and sisters, to know that we are that peculiar people. You see what I'm saying? And that we got the oracles of God. That will make your face shine, and the boldness of your face shall be changed, right? Verse 2, he said, I counsel thee to keep the king's commandment, and that in regard of the oath of God. So again, if you're learning to be a true servant of God, you got to learn that you got to keep the oath or the covenant of God, and you got to keep the commandment of the king, or in other words, the law of the land. right? So you keep the law in the land in regard of the covenant of God, right? Because you have to have both, brothers and sisters. You can't keep the law. You can't keep the law of the king over the law of God, and then you can't keep the law of God and disregard the law of the king, because you're still gonna have to deal with things in this fleshly realm, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Verse 3. Be not hasty to go out of his sight. Stand not in the evil thing, for he doth whatsoever pleaseth him, talking about the king. Where the word of the king is, there is power, and who may say unto him, who doest thou? Remember, God setteth up kings and he removeth kings, but each king he puts in that position, he instructs you to follow their commandments, unless they're going contrary to his commandments, because he's the ultimate king, right? Verse 5, whosoever keepeth the commandment shall feel no evil thing, and a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment. Going back to what Solomon was given, brothers and sisters, we're following the origin of this going back to Solomon, right? So if you keepeth the commandment of the king, no evil thing will come upon you. In other words, you will not be judged by God's wrath, and you will not be judged by the legislation of the land, by the law of the land. So the judgment of the land will not come to you, and the judgment of God will not come to you. That is why no evil thing will come to you if you keep the commandment, right? Verse 6, because to every purpose there is time and judgment, therefore the misery of man is great upon him. Remember what we read in Ecclesiastes 3, to every purpose there is time and judgment. There is a time and a purpose for every judgment call that you make, brothers and sisters, right? And you have to figure out how to discern when to use it, right? But this is also misery, because you got to go through that and learn that. And then you got to go through your trials and tribulations, and that can make you miserable, especially if you're not learning from your mistakes, brothers and sisters. But the only way you will not learn is if you are a scorner and you hate reproof and instruction, right? Verse 7, for he knoweth not that which shall be, for who can tell him when it shall be, right? Let's see where I'm at. Let's skip down to verse 9. Verse 9. And verse 9 reads, all this have I seen and applied my heart unto every work that is done under the sun. There is a time wherein one man ruleth over another to his own hurt, right? And so you got to understand that, brothers and sisters, because sometimes these rulers will rule to their own hurt and your hurt. Your life will be in jeopardy, and so will his, right? Let us continue, verse 10. And so I saw the wicked buried, who have come and gone from the place of the holy, and they were forgotten in the city where they had so done. This is also vanity, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily. Therefore, the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil, right? So if we didn't have the king, that's going back to the king's commandment, brothers and sisters. If we didn't have the king's commandment, which is the judgment that is executed speedily, right? Because we remember God's judgment, his final judgment is the lake of fire. Unless we were living in his land, which he's the king thereof, we're not going to be sentenced to death according to the law of the land in Israel. But we still got that lake of fire ahead of us if we're not leery about our behavior, brothers and sisters. But for the time being, the commandment of king, that sentence against your evil work in the king's land, brothers and sisters, you will get dealt with. You definitely will get dealt with. But if that didn't exist, the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. That's why you have to have both the law of God and the law of the king, right? Because it'll be chaos in the land, right? Verse 12, though a sinner do evil 100 times and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with him, with them that fear God, which fear before him. But it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not before God. He said, as a matter of fact, they might think they're going to get prolonged days, but brothers and sisters, them days that they're living are like a shadow. And then they're not, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to prolong days. They're not going to have long life and peace, brothers and sisters, right? Because they do not fear God, right? So this is look at the wisdom that Solomon has been given, brothers and sisters. And then what's crazy is he was given this wisdom. At the end of his life, he ended up not using it properly, right? And then he got into all type of madness and folly, right? And so that's why he's able to explain to you, man, this is vexation of spirit, this, that, and third. I didn't have all of this. I didn't obtain all this great wealth, things of that nature. Now I understand what it's about. It's about God's commandments. It's about adhering to God's commandments to really be fulfilled in your life, right? Let's go to the next chapter, chapter 9. Chapter 9 and verse 1. And we got 2 more places after this, brothers and sisters. Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 1. Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, "For all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise in their works are in the hand of God. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them," right? So everything that is in the hands of the wise and in the hands of the righteous, I'm sorry, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hands of God, right? And so we want to know that everything that you're doing, brothers and sisters, is in the hands of God. That's why you have to trust into God with all you got, with all your heart, with all your understanding, brothers and sisters, right? Verse 2, all things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean and to the unclean. To him that sacrificeth and to him that sacrifices not. As is the good, so is the sinner, and he that sweareth as he that feareth an oath. This is an evil amongst all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead, right? That is the one event that happens to them all. You see how these things are repeating. That means that God wanted us to understand this, brothers and sisters, because this is the wisdom that he gave Solomon, right? Teaching you to discern the difference between the fool and the wise man. Showing you the perspective of a man that had riches and all the silver and everything you can name, and what he ended up saying, man, this is vanity and vexation of spirit. Matter of fact, I hate life in the way it is, because everything that I've worked for, I got to sit here and pass it on to the next person that is under me, that comes after me, and who knows whether he's going to do good with the stuff that I didn't work for. This stuff is all vanity, right? And so when we get to the end, it's going to make sense why the last thing he said was in his conclusion, fear God and keep his commandments, because everything that he got, everything that he's learned in life, brothers and sisters, all the wisdom and experience he got, it all pointed to one thing. Without God's commandments, without the Spirit of God, it is all vanity and vexation of spirit and grief. And you will hate life, right? That's crazy that he actually said that, right? But that shows you how serious this thing is, right? Why people want to go and serve mammon. That's why it's like you don't even want to be in that position, brothers and sisters, where you're going to do evil to obtain money. The love of money is the root of all evil. But guess what? The person that had the most money, brothers and sisters, he said this is vanity and vexation of spirit, right? Showing you that, man, you can't, basically, I hate this situation because you can't take none of this stuff with you that you worked for, right? Let us continue. Verse 4. For to him that is joined to all the living there is hope, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have they any more a reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that is under the sun. Right? So we don't even have to worry about them anymore because they don't know nothing. They can't feel nothing. They can't see nothing. They can't smell nothing, nothing. Brothers and sisters, they're gone. Right? So if you're living, you got hope to turn your life around and to turn to the reproof of God, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Let's go to the next chapter, chapter 10, and we're going to start at verse 1. Ecclesiastes 10 and verse 1. Ecclesiastes 10 and verse 1. And verse 1 reads, dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking savior. So doth a little folly him that is in reputation for wisdom and honor. Why is that? First and foremost, brothers and sisters, y'all got to know a deadly reality that people are just shallow. One small little thing, this is why we talk about being experienced, having etiquette. Even if something is not a sin, brothers and sisters, if they think it's a sin or they think something, this is not how God carries himself. For instance, you shouldn't want to do this anyway, but if you coming out and your clothes all sloppy and wrinkled and they looking all bad, brothers and sisters, they not going to associate you with God because they see God as clean, as, fresh and clean. So guess what? That little small folly is going to ruin the reputation of one that's known for wisdom and honor. Just that small little thing. And of course, if you sin, just the smallest slip up, it's going to ruin your reputation too. But it'll be things that ain't sin, brothers and sisters. That's why you got to watch yourself, right? That's why he said a good name is better than precious ointment, right? And a little folly can ruin that name. That's why you don't want to be out here being a stumbling block, turning people away from Christ and being a rock of offense when it comes to your behavior not being suitable for representing God, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Verse 2. A wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart is at his left. Yea, also when he that is a fool walketh by the way, his wisdom faileth him, and he saith to everyone that he is a fool. So his wisdom gonna fail him. That's one thing of not taking accountability. He gonna say everybody else is a fool when his wisdom is falling and failing him, right? Why is that? Because he's a scorner. He's going to seek wisdom, but he's not going to find it because he's looking for things that satisfy his own beliefs and his own thoughts and his own flesh, not the instructions of God. The instructions of God can never fail, brothers and sisters, right? Let us continue. Verse 4. If the spirit of the ruler rise up against thee, leave not thy place, for yielding pacifieth great offenses. So that is another that is telling you basically to stand up for yourself, brothers and sisters, right? It don't matter what position, what high level position this person is in. Do not pacify. If you don't stand your guard, you're going to pacify great offenses. People think they can just walk all over you, right? So especially don't play respect of persons in this regard. Stand up for yourself. Don't let nobody walk all over you and push all over you, even if they are the ruler, right? Even if they are the ruler, it don't matter where it is, what ruler, what organization, business, church, civilization, society, government, it don't matter. Do not let nobody, and I mean nobody, get away with great offenses to you constantly doing it and just pacifying it. No, you better stand your ground. I don't mean you got to curse nobody out or nothing of that. You ain't got to get hostile or nothing. Just stand your ground, right? Just stand your ground. Let's go to the last chapter. Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter. Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 9. Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 9. Now, this same wisdom that Solomon gave you, he's going to tell you, because he is the preacher. He was called the preacher king, brothers and sisters. He's going to tell you what a preacher needs to be doing. He also going to show you what type of preacher you need to be looking for. And then he's going to sum it up with the conclusion. And if that preacher ain't teaching that, you need to get up out of there, right? Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 9. Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 9. And verse 9 reads, "And moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yea, he gave good heed and sought out and set in order many proverbs." And guess what? This preacher went through them stages of being corrected, of being reproved, brothers and sisters, right? Of obtaining unto wise counsel. He did all of these things. He did not forsake the way. He took his correction, everything, brothers and sisters, right? And now what is he doing? He's going to teach the people knowledge. He gave good heed. Remember, he took correction. He took reproof. He listened to the words of the wise. So that's how he gave heed, and he sought out. He was seeking unto wisdom. Let's see where he sought it out in, right? And he set in order many proverbs, right? The preacher sought to find acceptable words, and that which was written was upright. Written where? In this book. That's what he is searching out. Things that are written in this book, brothers and sisters, right? He said, even the words of truth, which is here. Verse 11, the words of the wise are as goads and nails fastened by the master of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. And we know that is Christ, brothers and sisters, right? That shepherd is Christ, right? Let's skip down to verse 13. Verse 13, let's sum it up. This is what the preacher is supposed to be teaching you, right? Those acceptable words that are written and which are upright are these. Verse 13, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work unto judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil, right? And we have to hold on to that, right? The commandments of God is all that matters. That's all that matters. This is your whole duty. This is why he went through that whole thing of showing you, hey, he was rich and all these things, but guess what? The only duty that you have on this earth is to fear God and keep his commandments, brothers and sisters. That's the only way you're going to receive good understanding. That's the only way you can receive correction, turn to his reproof. You got to have your eye and your heart on the commandments of God. Nothing else. Everything else is vanity. Everything else is vanity. And this is, in Solomon, if you see, he already understood that, which is why he didn't ask for nothing but to be able to discern good from bad and to judge the people of Israel for the Lord. And the Lord still gave him that because guess what? That was part of the wisdom that he was given. He was going to have to go through all that experience to end up telling every last one of us that at the end of the day, this is the whole conclusion. This is the only duty of man. Fear God and keep his commandments. Right? Told you it was all going to go back to the commandments, brothers and sisters, right? So I hope everybody was edified today. Once again, we want to be able to take these things and this wisdom in this book, brothers and sisters, and to be able to apply it to our everyday living. Once again, We at the Walls of Jericho, yes, we are known for historical breakdowns and things of that nature, but we want to raise people up in this word. We want to make sure y'all get the salvation that you need and make sure God keeps blessing us so that we can keep blessing y'all and vice versa, right? So, of course, I want to give all honor, praise, and glory to the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for the wisdom that he has given us, brothers and sisters, through the prophets and through the comfort of the Holy Ghost and things of that nature. I want to give all honor and praise to him, brothers and sisters, right? To the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who is Jesus. I am Cassius Israel, a.k.a. Kazak ben Yehuda. I represent the Walls of Jericho, Biblical and Historical Studies, Hebrews in the Hood Media, and I thank you for your time, and shalom. Tune in next week, brothers and sisters, same time, Mondays at 6 o'clock. Shalom.